In this tutorial, we're going to do some analysis to determine which buildings are within 1 kilometer of a school. So first, I have a blank project open here in QGIS. I'm going to go ahead and save my project first. And the very first thing I'm going to need to do is add some layers. So we're going to come up here to Data Manager. And I'm going to start by adding some vectors. So first I need to find my files. So I have some training data that I'm going to use. And I'm going to go to my shapefiles, and I need a couple of files. So I'm going to find my shapefile for places. I'm going to add that. Then I'm going to also add another few layers. Some of them are going to come from GeoPackage instead, and I've got a training data GeoPackage in my folder, my training data folder. So I'm going to connect to that package, and I'm going to add buildings. I'm going to add roads, and I'm going to add schools. And if I look over here, I can see that my layers are being added, so I know that this is working. And then finally, another way to add data, we can do it through this spatialite. I've got a connection that I can connect to within my training folder. So if I connect to that, I get this land use spatialite file, and I'm going to add that as well. Okay, so if I zoom out a little, I have my initial map. However, the layers may not make sense the way they are. They might be overwriting each other, so I'm going to reorder them. And to reorder them, you just drag and drop like this. Okay, so that looks a lot better. I can come over here and zoom in and see. Now I've got buildings. I've got my land use layer, and that looks pretty good. So next would be editing our layers here. One way to do it is to come up here to the styling panel, and I can add labels if I'd like. So we can do labels for the places. When I do that, I see them here, but they're hard to read. So I can come over here to this buffer and draw a buffer around them, and now I can read my labels really nicely. So that's one way to edit these. I can also change the color. I like the orange color marker for my places, but if I wanted to, for example, change the land use color to be more opaque, I can do that here. So this is one way to edit. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Another way is to come into the Properties tab here. So my roads are simple lines. I want my roads to be black, and I'm going to make them a little bit thicker. I could even change my stroke styles if I wanted, or how they're beveled. So there's lots of options in here. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and now I can see my roads, and I'm happy with that. For my buildings, if I don't like this color, I can also change the color within here. So maybe I want to make my buildings this color. Perfect. I'll leave my schools the way they are, as brown. Okay, so now we've done some reordering of our layers. We've explored the layer styling and the layer properties. Another thing that we can do is we can set some dynamic layering. So for example, maybe I don't always want my building layer to be visible. Maybe I only want it to be visible when I'm zoomed in. So I'm going to come over to the Layers Property tab, and I'm going to click down over here on rendering, and I want scale dependent visibility, and I'm going to change this to 10,000, 1 to 10,000. Apply. Okay, so now my buildings don't show up until I get zoomed in far enough. Perfect. Okay, let's do one last thing and filter our roads layer. To filter a layer, we would come over here, right click, and go to filter. Then I'm going to type in a specific expression. Okay, so I've entered my expression. I'm filtering for highways, and I want to make sure that they are not null. I'm going to click OK, and then I can see over here I've filtered my road layer, and there's a little indicator there so that I know that. Okay, so now we've kind of got our base map going, but we want to actually do some analysis here. We're trying to figure out which buildings are within a kilometer of schools. So first we need to calculate vector distance, and in order to do that, we're going to have to project our layers so that we can do those calculations. So we're going to go into the vector distance menu. In order to do that, we're going to start with buildings. I'm going to right click. I'm going to choose export, save features as. I'm going to basically create a new file with this layer, and I want to save it as, let's call it buildings projected. And over here in my CRS button, I'm going to click here, and I'm going to change the coordinate reference system. I would like it to be this. And if you don't have, this is in my recently used, but you can search for it up here by typing, EPSG 32734, and then find it down here, select it, and hit OK. Okay, and then I'm going to hit OK, and I want it to save to the map. So there's my new layer there. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck my old one. And then let's do the same thing for roads and for schools. Okay, so I went ahead and did that, and I made my roads layer black again, because I like my roads black. So now I have my 3 layers. I went ahead and unchecked the other old layers, and I also unchecked land use and places for now, so my map isn't too cluttered. So this is what we are left with for now. And then now we need to actually do some vector analysis. So we're going to go ahead and go into this processing toolbox up here, and we're going to go to vector geometry and drop this down, and we're going to go to buffer. I'm going to double click that, and I'm going to start with my roads projection layer, which it's already selected as the input layer. I'm going to set my distance equal to 50 meters, and then I'm going to click dissolve result, and then I'm going to save this layer. I'm going to save it, so I'm going to go to save to geo package, and I'm going to create a new geo package. I'm just going to call it vec analysis, and I'm going to name it, let's call it buff roads. Okay, and and then I'm going to run. All right, and then I'm going to close that. And then I'm going to perform the same steps for the schools layer. Now in this one, I want it to be 1 kilometer. So that would be, I'm going to change it that way. And then I'm going to go ahead and save it. I'm going to save it to my same geo package that I named prior. Okay, so now I have my 2 buffered layers, but what I really want is the intersection of these 2 layers, because this is really not helpful to look at. So in order to calculate the intersection, I need to come over and I'm going to search for, there's another way to find your, so I'm going to go to vector overlay intersection. So you can always search up here to find one of your toolbox options if you are having trouble finding it through all of the drop downs. So let's go ahead and double click on intersection. And then I'm going to set my input to my buffered schools layer. I'm going to set my other layer to my buffered roads layer. And then we're going to also save this to that same geo package, and we're going to call this let's call it intersection schools roads. Okay, run that. Okay, so now we have our intersection, so I don't need these buffered layers anymore. I just want my intersection, so I'm happy with that. And then I just need to do one more thing to clean this up. I'm going to go to my toolbox, and I'm going to go down here to vector selection, and I'm going to go to extract, and in this case I want extract by location. I want my buildings projected layer, and I want to compare it to my intersection of schools and roads. And once again, I'm going to save this to my geo package. Same one I've been using, and I'm going to call this ideal placed buildings, because these will be all the buildings that are in my buffered area. Go ahead and click run and close. So now I can turn off my buildings projection layer, and I'm left with this really neat map that shows me all of the buildings that are within 1 kilometer of a school.